During the various expeditions carried out on the Rio Beni in northeast Bolivia by the Scientific Exploration Society, we came across many small villages in need of help and assistance. To enable us to provide this, we were supported by the Simon I. Patino Foundation, one of whose leading members, Jaime Patino, had explored the river in his youth. Furthermore, in 2012, we learned from Mateo Nichols, a former American soldier who had set up a homestead in a remote corner of the river Madidi that leads into the Rio Beni, of an unusual caiman-like creature, and also of an interesting archaeological site. The creature appeared to be around 18 foot in length, with horns projecting upwards from its jaws and steam venting from points in the jaw. It swam straight at Mateo and his two sons, who were fishing in a lagoon near their home. To deter it, Mateo's son Tom fired a rifle shot into the water and it turned away. Several other people reported seeing the same creature and all considered it quite unlike any other caiman seen in the region. Mateo asked if we knew what type of caiman it was. Seeking advice from the eminent herpetologist Professor Mark O'Shea and Richard Muirhead of the Centre of Fortean and Zoology, we discovered that a type of horned caiman had been exhibited by Bronx Zoo in 1909. It was now believed to be extinct. Clearly, it would be of real interest if a living specimen could be found. Thus, a Recce expedition, titled Cotamama 9, was planned for 2020, but due to the pandemic, it had to be postponed. However, in November 2022, with the support of the Scientific Exploration Society, the Simon Patino Foundation, and a number of generous donors, the expedition finally took place. Our aim was to aid the village of Tres Hermanos, a short distance downriver from the town of Rurrenabaque, that is known as the gateway to the Bolivian Amazonas region. A team of 14 arrived in La Paz, Bolivia, and assembled in our old favourite, the El Dorado Hotel. Yolima Chipagata, the Scientific Exploration Society representative for Latin America, had organised the programme with great efficiency.
We're going to see the most wonderful ruins in the world. Enjoy your trip.
Looking forward to going to Lake Titicaca?
Rose and
We're not
Peter.
going to Lake Titicaca.
I'll be going.
And a short visit to the ancient city of Tiwanaku gave everyone the feel for the archaeology of Bolivia. The historic ruins have been partially rebuilt, and its earliest remains date back to 200 BC. As a political dispute had blocked the mountain road that leads from La Paz to Rurrenabaque, the team flew on a newly launched EcoJet airline. At Rurrenabaque, a wall of hot air hit us as we disembarked in 38 degrees C. We were glad to move into comfortable quarters at the Casa de Campo hostel, owned by our old friend Senora Adelita Jordan, who had played a leading role in organising the work at Tres Hermanos village. Rather than make the people await our arrival, we had sent out funds to cover the cost of some of the work there in advance.
We are downloading the ceramic, as they call here, or tile, for the school's floor.
Meetings were held with the authorities in both Rurrenabaque and the neighbouring town of San Buenaventura. The alcaldes were most supportive. And while based at Casa de Campo, we started work at the Tres Hermanos village. Our engineer, Avi Philosoph and Peter Manns went ahead by motorcycle on a very dusty road.
Here we are on our ride to Tres Hermanos. Hey! Smile, you're on candid camera.
The material that Adelita had arranged was moved by a tractor and trailer loaned by the mayor of San Buenaventura. Eventually the trailer collapsed and other transport had to be found to carry the material to the village.
Welcome to the village of Tres Hermanos on the River Bene in the Bene district of Bolivia. SES has had previous expeditions to this area. Past ones were to build the school here and the water tower behind me. This expedition, we hope to lay the floor of the school with tiles and to maintain the water tower. We've also carried out distribution of glasses and a dental clinic for the 17 families of this village, who all come from the 3 brothers.
The village school, which educates the 20 or so children, had already been much refurbished, with a new roof and a floor. Alas, the floor had not been completed successfully, and under Avi and Peter's instruction, and with the help of local builders, the villagers laid a new floor. We were also able to advise on work on the water supply system, which had been installed earlier. We were amused to see the village had a set of stocks, similar to those used in the Middle Ages in England. They did not seem to have been used recently, but the village corregidor or headman said they are named the place of justice and serve as a deterrent. Our wildlife team took the opportunity to set up camera traps. And Peter Manns had a meeting with the local shaman. Ancient ceramic artifacts collected by the local people were shown to us. They were in remarkably good condition.
We were trying to establish it was obviously a burial, because he said there were bones and some teeth in one of them. And what happened when the people died, they allowed the skeleton to break up, and then they put the bones in the pot and buried it in this. But they lived on the mound, so wherever he found it was originally a mound with a settlement on top of it, and they then just buried the things where they lived.
We also presented a large quantity of books and material to the school.
And many people there have contributed to supply you with these books and for other work that we've managed to do in your village.
La alegría que va a preparar los niños. Nada más sería.
But the children especially are terribly grateful that you all have support the students and they learning. They really appreciate this help. Thank you very much to you all.
Y lo voy a mover, lo voy a mover, lo voy a mover. Tengo un cuerpo y lo voy a mover desde la cabeza hasta los pies.
Y se formó la ronda. Evita Manu Pareña, toma mi retrato.
And were rewarded with fresh oranges, grapefruit and pork by the people. A pet peccary also gave us a friendly greeting. One variety of this creature can be extremely aggressive, but this one was quite tame. Dr. Joanna Reese, our dentist, was soon busy extracting teeth.
Sigamos. Muy bien.
And we noticed one little girl's parakeet refused to leave her shoulder while she had a tooth taken out. Puppets were given out to patients to encourage wildlife protection. Meanwhile, Jenny Ellinger and Kirstine Braund distributed reading glasses, which were much appreciated.
Yeah? Okay, it's a cross between.
On our last day at the village, the children and the ladies gave a display of dancing. Even getting some of us to join in. Finally, returning to Rurrenabaque, we encountered a fallen tree blocking the road.
We've come to a point on the road back from, say, Hermanos to Bonaventura, where a tree has come down across the road in the sudden gusts of wind that have been blowing. So with machetes we're having to clear the way.
Meanwhile, our three 14-metre boats were being prepared under the eye of the Bolivian Navy, who were responsible for safety on the country's river systems. Captain William Yana kindly agreed to send Sergeant Vladimir Parra and Marinero Marcus Salazar with us. They were indeed to prove invaluable. On Friday, the 11th of November, we embarked on our boats, assembled by the chief boatman Carlos, and powered by outboard motors, set off downstream for the Rio Madidi junction and then Campo Bravo, Mateo Nicol's old home.
10:20 we departed.
10:20 departed.
Making around 20 to 22 kilometres per hour, we swept on, being careful to avoid the many sunken trees and logs. These had caused us difficulty on a previous expedition and resulted in a serious accident, so great care was taken. In camp we held a minute's silence for the Armistice Day remembrance. Surveyor Tim Harrison was loaned a new set of navigational charts for the Rio Beni by the Navy. These showed that the river was constantly being realigned. We paused for a quick lunch on a beach and Adelita produced a tasty snack. As soon as one stops, the full effect of the heat can be felt. Occasional problems with outboard motors were a worry, but in general our boatmen could solve the problems. 2 bilge pumps brought from Britain proved to be useful, as the boats tended to leak. Birdlife, howler monkeys and capybara became more evident as we left the populated areas. On Sunday the 13th of November, a salmon-pink dawn greeted us. Adelita produced bread rolls and fried eggs on her small portable gas stove, and we were on our way around 0700 hours. Many caiman and more capybara became evident. We noticed that several of the small villages we passed had internet connections, and we were able to get Wi-Fi for our phones for a short while as we travelled. Stopping for the night at Candelaria village, we camped in the open-sided village hall. The village president remembered our last visit in 2007 and was delighted by our help with dentistry and reading glasses. We were constantly checking the river levels as we needed high water to be able to navigate to the Campo Bravo on the Rio Madidi, but so far the level was high. On Monday the 14th of November, we reached the Madidi junction and turned into the smaller river. Now we were motoring against the current. At Barracon, the shallow rapid was covered by the high water and we shot over it with no problem. At the village of Bajo Madidi, the people stated we needed authority to enter the Madidi National Park, which had been extended since our last visit in 2012. Sergeant Vladimir, who carried a large black pistol, explained we were there with the permission of the various high government officials. And after a short delay the people withdrew any objection to our movement, but asked for dental help on our return journey. Joe, our dentist, was out of anaesthetic, but the corregidor said he would order more from Ribalta, using his iPhone. How things have changed. Proceeding upriver, we stopped at the landing for Santa Ana, where Mr. Arnold Fong duly appeared to meet us. This gentleman had set up a lodge for fishermen, keen to catch an arapaima, the largest freshwater fish in the Americas, and he had purchased Matteo Nichols' homestead and land at Campo Bravo. Appreciating our interest in the caiman, he had kindly invited us to carry on with our work at the site. However, having lost some time at Barracon, we had to press on to reach Oaxaca and camp in daylight. Oaxaca was our base during the search for the meteorite in 2005 to 2006. We had taken a pedal organ from Dorset, there as a gift, and it was fascinating to see it still standing in the chapel, although sadly no longer playing. The village had changed. Nut farming seemed to have been changed to cattle production and breeding of horses for the cowboys. Only 4 families of the original 44 remained, and the water system we had installed did not function. However, they have internet. Sailing on upstream next day, we suffered some problems with the outboards, but luckily the water levels had not fallen, and we made good progress, seeing many capybara, some otters, and lively monkeys. As our drinking water was running short, we paused so that Avi, our quartermaster, could refill the containers from a clear stream running into the Madidi.
We are now refilling with water from a spring or a stream that is flowing into the Madidi River. It's a bit murky, but it's not too bad, and it's flowing water. And we shall sterilise this when we get to Campo Bravo, and that will be a drinking supply.
And it doesn't need to be warm, to be boiled?
No, just to filter through and then a few stereo tablets, and that should be able to drink. It'll be nice and clear by the time we've done that and ready to settle.
Adelita. Very good. And also Rose. Rose is in charge of pumping water.
We are in Campo Bravo. This is the afternoon of the 15th of November.
We reached Campo Bravo, Matteo Nichols' old home at 1300 hours, and found it a sad scene compared with the tidiness of the old days. Mr. Fong had gone ahead and greeted us. He has 60 cattle, some horses and chickens, being cared for around the buildings, where he aims to build another fishing lodge. To avoid the cattle, we pitched our tents within the compound amongst the pigs and chickens. Matteo's old well was still working, so we were not short of water, and Arnold Fong's caretaker Tigri did his best to help us. On Wednesday the 16th of November, a team went upriver in a peki canoe to seek the archaeological site that Matteo had mentioned, whilst another team set out to locate the lagoon said to contain the strange caiman. John Baker, a leading dowser in England, had done some remote dowsing to seek the archaeological site and had indicated a spot on a Google aerial photo. His point and Matteo's reckoning corresponded.
So I'm currently walking through the rainforest in northern Bolivia, and we are hoping to find some evidence of an archaeological site. So, fingers crossed, get there soon.
And Joe found some ceramic shards. The outline of a ditch in a cleared area was also evident. Clearly it had been the site of an early village. The shards and artefacts were collected by the local people. A collection of shards was also seen in Matteo's old house. These were similar to the ones discovered in Oaxaca in 2007, probably from the Mohos civilization. The wildlife team battled through the dense jungle to find the lagoon, but there was no sign of any caiman. However, camera traps were deployed and produced a few sightings of other creatures, including a vole-like animal, some birds, and possibly an otter. However, one important find was the clean skull of a large caiman in Matteo's old house. We reckoned it came from a creature 15 to 18 feet in length. This was valuable in our research, for it showed where teeth from the lower jaw had penetrated the upper jaw, and thus might account for the horns that Matteo had reported. At dusk, a fishing party went out on the Madidi and returned after dark with a couple of large catfish.
This is lunch. This is Charlotte's birthday dinner. Yeah. She doesn't eat fish, surely.
The day dawned hot and dry on Thursday the 17th of November, 36 degrees, and survey work was carried out at the archaeological site by Tim Harrison. Our phones were proving especially useful for communication, and we had been able to recharge them with the Tex Energy solar panels. The camera traps set up at the lagoon continued to provide images of small rodents, but no caiman. Adelita skillfully produced a fine-looking cake for Charlotte's birthday, which we enjoyed seated amongst the roving pigs and chickens. High temperatures were certainly affecting us, and several felt very lethargic. On Friday the 18th of November, using Tigris radio, the Ollie made contact with Mr. Fong, who had returned to his Santa Ana lodge, and discussed the provision of anaesthetic for some of the dental work on our way back. Sergeant Vladimir took photos for the Bolivian Navy News, which will publish a report of his visit to this remote corner of the country. Sailing at 0830 hours, we made good progress to Santa Ana, which we reached at 1300, to be met by our friend Arnold Fong, who kindly produced his tractor and trailer to carry us to his lodge about a mile away. We set up our tents on his well-cropped lawns, and one or two suffering from tummy upsets were given rooms in the lodge. Thanks to Arnold Fong, the dental anaesthetic had arrived from Rurrenabaque by way of a newly constructed track, and Joe held a clinic for a long queue of patients needing extractions. The news of the track to Rurrenabaque was a surprise. Apparently it takes some 8 hours by four-wheel drive vehicle through scrub and jungle. Arnold uses this regularly to bring clients, but he also has a small airstrip. This kind man kindly saved us a tasty meal of roast pork, and even had some beer available. Arnold expressed concern about a large snake, probably an anaconda or a boa, said to be black and red, with foul breath that frightened his staff, but we did not see it. Saturday, the 19th of November, was dry and hot again, and, using the Arnold's tractor and trailer, we returned to our boats and bid him farewell. Making steady progress at about 18 kilometres per hour, we joined the River Beni at 10:55 hours, seeing numerous caimans sunning themselves on the riverbanks, and also saw several small herds of capybara, as well as monkeys and bird life. We reached the village of Santa Anita in the late afternoon to be greeted by a mass of enthusiastic children, as adults had gone to a conference. Most of us felt dehydrated as we were losing body fluid due to the heat and the breeze on us as the boats moved upstream. Tim continued to plot our course, and on Sunday the 20th of November reported that we had done 144 kilometres from Santa Ana and had 368 kilometres to go to Rurrenabaque. The distance covered had been reduced by engine breakdowns and propellers damaged by hitting submerged logs, but the river level remained steady. Kirsten, who acted as our meteorologist, had warned of an approaching storm, and after dark, lightning appeared over the distant horizon. The storm struck at 01:30 hours in the morning. First the thunder and lightning grew closer. Then came the wind and rain. In no time, a tempest was howling across the sandbank, damaging tents and soaking those who had slung their hammocks in the boats. Lightning forked into the beach, and the almost deafening crash of thunder seemed to hang right over the camp. It was still with us as the dim light of dawn appeared at about 05:30. Somehow Adelita made a scratch breakfast as we packed our sodden belongings into the boats, whose hulls were filling with water. The bilge pumps we had brought from Britain could hardly cope, and it became necessary to bail out as we made our way onto the turbulent river. James Founder, formerly of the parachute regiment, and Joe the dentist played a leading role in getting everyone aboard. Shivering in the rain, we butted our way against the waves. It was more like a sea than a river. Suddenly the wind fell and a mist descended on the Rio Beni, hiding floating and partially submerged logs. The Cayman had taken cover. Carlos, our chief boatman, kept his helmsman going as they stood all day on the motors, cold and drenched to the skin. Delayed by engine breakdowns, we sailed on as dusk approached, and finally saw the light of Rurrenabaque in the distance. It was dark when we pulled in to the landing and found Captain William Yarner and a team of sailors were there to help us unload and move back to Adelita's hostel. Hot showers and a tasty supper were a real welcome. Recovered and refreshed on the 22nd November, we set out, our wet belongings to dry as Adelita served a splendid breakfast. She seemed to enjoy the challenge. Arrangements were made to get the furniture for the Tres Hermanos school delivered, and Navy visited the village school to check on the laying of the tiled floor, which had been completed whilst we were downriver.
¿Por qué están contentos? Porque tienen nuevos muebles. ¿Y qué más tienen nuevo?
On the 23rd of November, many of the team took the opportunity to visit the Pampas area near Rurrenabaque to see the wildlife, and Joe managed to find a small anaconda. John Bell got a close-up of a cayman's head full frontal, and one could indeed see the teeth from the lower jaw protruding through the upper jaw. Were these the horns Matteo had seen? There was also a protuberance below the eyes. Perhaps these were the vents from which the steam was said to appear. That night, Antonio, Adelita's brother, cooked a delicious barbecue with huge chunks of beef, and morale was high.
Excellent. Ay, Antonio, gracias. Esto es una gastronomía completa. Gracias. Nice meal. Adelita's head brother, Antonio, has prepared a made a nice, lovely salad.
Were they happy?
Yes.
I just saw the barbecue.
Surplus medical supplies and dental equipment were donated to the hospital at San Bonaventura and to the local dentist who had joined us at Tres Hermanos. These were very much appreciated. A visit to local places of interest, including a fascinating ravine near Rurrenabaque, took place on the 24th of November.
Yeah. Give me a nice smile, Kirsten. If you say so.
Yeah.
And that night we held the traditional Burns supper that we hold at the end of every expedition. Jenny Ellinger, who had done this on other ventures, did this with great skill. We were joined by Captain William with his daughter, Vladimir and Marcus, as well as our 3 stalwart boatmen. Adelita and Antonio produced a splendid supper, starting with Staley's haggis, brought from Scotland. The haggis was duly butchered by Joe and a dram or 2 taken to help it down.
O'er grace as long as my arm. The groaning trench there he fill, your hurdies like a distant hill. Your pin must help to make the mill. In time of need, when through your pores the dews a distill like amber bead. His knife see rustic labour dipped, and cut you with a ready slift, trenching your gushing entrails bricked, like only that. And then, oh what a glorious sight, warm and reeking rich.
And we presented Captain William with a red ensign we'd flown on the voyage, beneath the pavilion flag of course. It was a great way to end such a challenging Recce expedition.
Podamos contar esta experiencia que hemos tenido, en especial la experiencia que ha tenido el Sargento Parra con...
Our captain is terribly grateful to you all to being here, and especially to receive this ensign. And he will be happy to display it and to tell the people about our experience.
Yoli had organised a bus to take us over the mountains at 0700 hours on Friday the 25th of November. As one might expect, it arrived on Bolivian time at 8:10. We were assured that the road to La Paz had replaced the dreaded Road of Death, on which we had had a bad accident in 2007. Indeed, it did for much of the way, but alarmingly there remained a stretch of several kilometres where our wheels were within a foot or 2 of a sheer drop. However, we reached the high pass at 15,000 feet above sea level in the dark and descended to the capital. Finding the Hotel El Dorado challenged our bus driver, but we made it at 2300 hours to a welcome soup and lasagna. One should not visit Bolivia without seeing Lake Titicaca, and on Saturday the 26th of November we drove out to the world's highest navigable lake, nesting in the Andes at 12,507 feet above sea level. At Horta Jalta we met our old friend Maximo Katari, who took pleasure in taking us out in his new reed catamaran that had been built for the tourist trade. It was Maximo and his son Eric who had made our reed boats for the 3 Cotamama expeditions carried out by the Scientific Exploration Society. Out on the vast lake, we tied up long enough for James Founder and Jenny Ellinger to take a swim. Jenny likes to swim in the sea every day in Jersey, and it was a special treat for her. Back on shore we visited the Titi Museum that the Qataris have built featuring the reed boat voyages, starting with Thor Heyerdahl's famous expeditions. On a visit to Hermanos in 2006, we had discovered a strange double-nosed Andean tiger hound, so named by the legendary Colonel Fawcett in 1913. Prior to the 2022 expedition, we had been asked by a Californian organisation named the Kingship Partners if we could obtain swab samples from any double-nosed Andean tiger hounds we found, so that the DNA could be traced. Alas, the swabs did not reach us prior to the expedition, but nevertheless, we watched out for the dogs with this unusual feature, and after we had left Bolivia, one turned up, owned by William and his daughter Puala Yana in Rurrenabaque. It was a 2-year-old bitch, one of a pair adopted by Puala, so measures are now being taken to obtain swab samples. Thus ended the Kota Mama 9 Recce expedition, and the team dispersed, leaving Yoli and Colonel John to thank the Simon Patino Foundation for their generous support. It was a recce well done, and very worthwhile, renewing our friendship with many kind people along the Beni River.